Welcome to the Master of Public Policy Internship Showcase. Thanks so much for joining us today. I'd like to introduce our director for the School of Public Policy, Lillard Richardson.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm so glad to see everyone here. This is turning into one of my favorite events of the year. We get to learn about what our students are doing, the wonderful things. Public service is a key component of public policy education and our mission of the school. And one of the ways that that's met is through the students' good work in these internships. And it's always exciting to see what they're doing, how they've contributed to these organizations. And I really appreciate what Whitney has done to set this up. And I especially appreciate what Catherine has done to prepare the students all along and manage them through the internships. But most importantly, I want to thank any preceptors that are out there, the supervisors. Without you, we couldn't do this. You're so crucial to our students' development and learning about themselves and figuring out how they want to contribute to society. And that's so exciting for us. And we do appreciate you because we couldn't do it without you. So with that, I don't want to say too much, but we want to get on to the students as soon as we can. But next, we'll turn to Catherine. Dr. Bob.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. The internship program is such a critical component of our professional development in the School of Public Policy. And it's how our students become prepared for the real world. It's how they take the classroom experience and apply it into practice. And it helps them to be job ready upon graduation. The internship typically takes place between the first and the second year. And it's a wonderful opportunity for that first year application of experience. And we're incredibly proud of them and excited to see a select number of our interns presenting today. I also want to encourage your participation, and each student will present for about 5 minutes, and they'll talk about their organization, what they did and what they learned. And we have a couple of minutes after each presentation for questions. So please line up some questions, use the chat or the Q&A function, and Whitney and I will certainly wind them in as the presentations go along. And I also want to extend my thanks to Whitney for helping us to pull together this webinar format. This is our third year now doing this, and it's become something that I look forward to every year as well. So with the housekeeping items, then I would like to move on next to a thank you. Dr. Richardson did thank our preceptors, but I wanted you to see who our preceptors are and were for the course of the summer. And without these organizations and without the tireless support of preceptors, these internships wouldn't happen. And while we are on the third year and we're not fully remote anymore, we certainly appreciate all of the pivots that the preceptors have done in terms of working with student needs with respect to hybrid and in-person as well as fully remote internships. And we were successful once again in placing all of our students in the internships that they were looking for. So thank you to the preceptors for your support and your continuing support of our program. And with that, Whitney, I'd like to turn it over to you to kick off the program and get us started.
Thank you so much, Dr. Baumgardner. We are so excited to watch our MPP students, the class of 2023, talk to us about their internship experiences. And to get things started, we have Laura Reagan, who's going to be talking to us about her experience with the Pennsylvania Commission on Sentencing. So Laura, take it away.
Hi, everyone. So this summer, I spent about 10 weeks interning for the Pennsylvania Commission on Sentencing. The commission is a legislative body made up of representatives, senators, judges, district attorneys, and defense attorneys that is tasked with developing sentencing policies and guidelines for Pennsylvania courts. Their goals are to create and implement fair and uniform guidelines and monitor the outcomes and effectiveness of these guidelines. In addition to the commission members that I just previously mentioned, there are commission staff who work in education and outreach, research and analysis, and IT units. Staff members respond to directives from the commission members with research and reports. They develop and manage data collection software and educate and train criminal justice system actors on guidelines, guideline updates, and policy. So during my time at the commission, I assisted with the research, writing, and editing of a report about the violation of Uniform Firearms Act and the recent rise in homicides and firearm violence. My research for this project focused specifically on prosecutorial discretion and the reasons prosecutors decline to pursue cases, such as uncooperative witnesses or victims, police misconduct, or lack of sufficient evidence and other reasons. I also compiled research on recidivism rates for individuals who had committed firearm and violent offenses, the findings of which were presented at a commission policy meeting. I also assisted a colleague completing her postdoc research with a project investigating the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic on sentencing, particularly looking into whether there were noticeable racial disparities as a result of sentencing changes that occurred. My research specifically looked into the racially disparate impacts of COVID-19 on other systems, actually, such as the workforce and education. And I also looked into past times of crises, as we call them, such as climate disasters and economic crises, to demonstrate that there was a historical precedent for times of crises to disproportionately impact Black people and people of color. Another project for my internship was to thoroughly research best sentencing practices to achieve public safety and reduce crime. I researched evidence-based sentencing, a practice that involves assessments of an offender's needs and potential for successful probation. I also researched flaws in sentencing practices, such as risk assessments that include characteristics like race, gender, and socioeconomic status. And the inclusion of these characteristics can result in discriminatory or biased sentencing outcomes. Additionally, over the course of the summer, I coded nearly 1,500 docket sheets into Excel to assist with an ongoing project about sentencing disparities. I also had the pleasure of being able to conduct several interviews with professionals in the field of public policy to understand their experiences and get career advice from them. So some of my takeaways from this internship, one of the most interesting projects I was able to be a part of at the commission was one I previously mentioned, the VUFA, or Violation of Firearms Act report. I assisted with the report in the weeks leading up to it being completed and submitted to the commission members, and was able to see what it looks like to finalize an extensive project. The pressure was high to complete the report by the deadline, and I was able to see how my colleagues collaborated to make sure that the final report was cohesive and concise, that the research and analysis was displayed and explained appropriately, and that the language of the report was able to be understood by individuals without expertise in the subject. While I was unable to assist with every part of this project, I learned a lot by being able to see how the different pieces of the project being pursued by different staff members were able to come together. Also, because I was assisting the commission staff with any work that they were in the process of completing, and my time there was limited, I saw various stages of many projects. What stood out to me was how, over the course of only 10 weeks, so much about the direction of a project could change as new information was uncovered, time constraints became evident, and interests changed. Through the process of researching a topic, the trajectory of some projects were altered slightly or changed dramatically as misconceptions or complications came to light. Finally, one of my biggest takeaways from my time at the commission was how complicated the field of public policy truly is. I learned so much over the course of 10 weeks, especially that I have a lot more to learn. The intricacies of the criminal justice system are complex and confusing. Research is hardly ever straightforward, and navigating politics can make it even more complicated. I'm glad I was able to get a glimpse into what this process looks like in practice, and I was fortunate to be able to work alongside professionals working to improve the criminal justice system. My time with commission staff was very informative, and I know that what I learned will assist me in the future as I determine what career path I wish to pursue. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Laura. What a great presentation. It sounds like you had a great experience with the Pennsylvania Commission on Sentencing. I want to remind everyone that this is a great opportunity to ask Laura some questions about her experience. Laura, what was the most surprising thing that you learned during your time in your internship?
I think for me, it was about how many projects were happening at the same time that everyone was having to learn how to manage these projects, manage their time, and manage the expectations of the members of the commission. And it felt like there was so much going on all the time. And also, like, when I first entered into this internship, I kind of went in a little bit blind. And as I was learning more and more about the commission, how it functions, and how sentencing practices work, it's extremely complicated. You have to be very knowledgeable about this. And even after 10 weeks, there's still so much that I don't understand about how these processes work. It's super complicated. So I was really impressed by my colleagues and their knowledge as well.
Were there any specific skills that you learned from your preceptors that were demonstrated, that you learned, that you will be taking away from this experience?
Yes, so my preceptor, Matt, one thing that he emphasized a lot when we were working together was how to present information in a way that people will respond to, people will understand, because I know for us policy students, we talk a lot about how to present statistical information in a way that, isn't confusing to people who might not have a background in that. And my preceptor was very thoughtful about that, always offered to help me organize information in a way that was easy to digest from others. So yeah.
Speaking about communications, how Dr. Richardson is asking, with so many projects, how did the leadership communicate priorities to you?
So certainly we had different types of projects. So the VUFA project that I mentioned, that was, we were doing that project on behalf of the commission members, that they had given us a directive and there was a timeline to complete that by. So that was definitely the most important project that we were working on. And then what was great about working there, and there was a little bit of freedom to pursue projects that were of personal interest to the staff there. Mm-hmm. But obviously those had to kind of come second to what the directives that we were responding to from the commission members.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Laura, for your presentation, and it sounds like a great experience. Up next, we have Blake Tolliver. Blake is here to tell us about his internship experience with Bressler, Amory, and Ross. So take it away, Blake.
All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Blake Tolliver, and I'll be presenting my poster project titled Sitting for the Bar, an Issue of Citizenship. Now, Bressler, Amory, and Ross is a mid-sized corporate law firm with 150 attorneys across 10 offices nationwide. Practice areas of the firm include banking, labor, employment, securities, real estate, and even cannabis law. With over 25 practice areas, a strong client network, and a significant number of high-performing attorneys, Bressler, Amory, and Ross has been able to get themselves recognized as one of New Jersey's top 20 law firms, as well as being listed as one of the National Law Journal's top 350 law firms. And this summer, I had the opportunity to intern at their New Jersey office in Florham Park. Bressler has been working really hard over the past decade in order to increase diversity and inclusion within the firm. And this is done through their Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. And this committee is tasked with building and maintaining diversity and inclusion across all Bressler offices nationwide in order to get insights and perspectives from individuals of all backgrounds, which in the end helps make the firm stronger and builds a stronger sense of community in the end. And I was fortunate enough to work alongside Lauren Fenton Valdivia, who is the firm's firm-wide Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Chair. And I spent most of my time this summer working with her. So the objective of my internship specifically was to research, analyze, and create a written work product of an issue relevant to diversity, equity, and inclusion. Therefore, my preceptor tasked me with the responsibility of creating a policy report, very similar to what we do in our current policy classes, in order to better understand the status of public policy surrounding DACA recipients and their eligibility for the bar. DACA recipients specifically are individuals within the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program who came to the United States with their parents illegally. Under this program, children are protected from deportation as a result of their parents' actions. However, many DACA recipients pursuing higher degrees, such as in the law, are often met with uncertainty due to a federal law, 8 U.S.C. 1621, which allows states to decide bar eligibility on a case-by-case basis. And as a result, that raises two questions. First, should law students with DACA status be eligible to sit for the bar? And then the second question is, are policies denying bar eligibility for children of undocumented aliens consistent with mandates of equal protection? An investigation I felt into this question was very important, and the committee felt into this question was very important, because this would help Bressler, Amory, and Ross be better advocates, specifically for people who are looking to take on a legal position at Bressler, Amory, and Ross or other law firms alike, because this is an issue that for summer associates looking for work, they eventually have to take the bar. And not being able to take the bar because of your citizenship status prevents you from becoming an attorney, which in the end hurts diversity, equity, inclusion efforts, because by that point, we won't have individuals entering who do have that background, who could be very valuable to the law firm and help increase the different perspectives that exist within the law firm and help the law firm succeed. And given the results of my research through my policy report, I came to 2 recommendations specifically to address the uncertainties regarding bar eligibility for DACA recipients in the United States. The first policy recommendation is to amend federal law 8 USC 1621 to establish uniform eligibility requirements, which allow all DACA recipients to sit for the bar. This would be beneficial for 3 specific reasons. First, it would directly embrace the sentiments established by the Equal Protection Clause. Secondly, it would allow DACA recipients to continue to make meaningful contributions to the national economy based on the ruling of Plyler v. Doe, 1982. And that case specifically was the foundation for the work that I did this summer, based on the fact that, for example, in this case, the Texas school district tried to restrict people who were like children who were undocumented from attending school. But in the end, if those individuals can't attend school, then as a society, we're producing people that potentially are illiterate and don't have the ability to contribute to the economy. So in the situation of bar eligibility, not allowing individuals who are undocumented to get their license to practice law is only hindering what that specific case was looking to show, which is in order for us to progress as a nation and in order to improve the economy, we need everybody to be able to contribute. And hindering people, certain specific groups from contributing is only hindering the growth of the economy. And collectively, also a recommendation I also made based on my research is that there are times where individuals potentially can get deported. And that was based on a case that was Leclerc v. Webb, where a individual, the Louisiana bar actually had a problem with the fact that they couldn't keep track of their attorneys because their attorneys were being deported. So something I suggested to the Diversity and Inclusion Committee is that there's some type of biennial kind of check-in with attorneys of this status in order to make sure that they're still working in the United States and haven't been deported. This helps states keep track of the attorneys that are practicing. And overall, it tries to mediate some of the concerns that were raised in a lot of the research that I was able to conduct this summer. But overall, the result of this internship was amazing. I can certainly see myself potentially pursuing a career in public policy. I certainly believe the greatest improvements to diversity, equity, and inclusion can be accomplished through public policy. And the research I did this summer was representative of the sentiment. I learned that while lawyers do assist individuals in legal disputes, their ability to make change on a nationwide scale is limited. Often their ability to make drastic change to law is only through their involvement in cases that make it all the way up to either the state or federal Supreme Courts. Unfortunately, getting this ability not only to argue a case before the Supreme Court, but also have that legal dispute in fact lead to change, to a change in the law is unlikely. And I think through public policy as a legislator, I would be able to focus my efforts directly on enacting change through initiatives aimed at making employment a more equitable opportunity for all people. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Blake. And we actually have a few questions. If you could, one is from Dr. Richardson. Dr. Richardson is asking, how do the laws vary across the states served by the law firm that you worked with, Bressler, Amory, and Ross? And what about Pennsylvania? If you could tell us a little bit about that.
Pennsylvania specifically, so Bressler, Amory, Ross doesn't have so I was only focusing on the specific states that the law firm practices in. But for places like New York, attorneys who are undocumented are able to practice. However, places like Florida, there is sometimes a case-by-case basis. And that does make it hard for the firm potentially to take on individuals who do hold that status. There's a lot of states that have different, but there's 12 states currently, most of them on the East Coast, that do allow undocumented people to practice and take the bar. However, there are a decent amount, the other 30, my math is off, 30 plus states that don't allow individuals to take the bar. And some of those states are actually ones that affect Bressler, Amory, Ross. So it definitely is an important thing too, for the firm to continue to advocate for in order to not only help Bressler, Amory, Ross, but help other law firms alike.
And speaking about the firm, can you talk a little bit about some of the skills that your preceptor demonstrated that you'll be taking away from this experience?
So on top of this experience specifically, I was tasked with, so I was working alongside Schreier scholars who are part of the diversity pipeline, and we were tasked with making a diversity, equity, inclusion kind of guideline and plan for increasing the amount of interns specifically from diverse backgrounds who can join the firm. So there were a few, I don't think I can say them specifically because they're very specific to the firm in terms of like, there's certain things we can't talk about. But we came up with a plan that will help future individuals who want to apply to Bressler, Amory, Ross as an intern. We definitely created a plan that makes that much easier. Some of those things include like making housing more equitable, things such as bringing individuals who come from diverse backgrounds in at once in order to help build community. So there's a lot of different things we want to work on in order to improve that. But yeah, that was my experience in that regard.
Well, thank you so much, Blake. It's great to hear from you, and it's nice to hear that you had such a great experience.
Thank you.
All right, up next, we're going to hear from Katie Gilligan, and Katie's going to tell us about her experience with the Metropolitan Police Department.
Hi. So I worked for the MPD this summer. I was assigned to the Violence Reduction Unit, which is a part of the MPD's Violent Crime Suppression Division, which was created as part of a policy initiative from the District of Columbia city government. So the purpose of this initiative is to combat the increasing rates of crime in the city, specifically violent crime. So the map that's in the center of the screen shows rates of violent crime within the past 2 years, with the darker colors indicating more violent crime. The MPD is unique from other police departments in that they don't have like they're not a state, it's like its own city. So they're the only police department that works directly with the U.S. Attorney's Office, who are responsible for indicting and prosecuting individuals for crimes. And the Violence Reduction Unit also uses federal partners, including the FBI and the DEA, to aid in their investigations, which can be really helpful, especially when cases go outside of the borders of DC. The VRU utilizes what's known as intelligence-led policing, which is a policing strategy that focuses on using new technologies, crime data, criminal histories, and other forms of intelligence to conduct their investigations. It's a proactive, not a reactive approach to policing. And over the course of the summer, I was able to observe and help with this by deep diving into social media accounts, analyzing people's criminal histories, helping with controlled undercover drug operations, and going out and conducting surveillance in some of the most violent areas of the city. While working with the MPD, some of my other responsibilities included analyzing crime data, collaborating with crime analysts, and creating maps for the unit to reference during their investigations. Additionally, the MPD's strategic engagement office offered a couple seminars throughout the summer for like just the interns, and they showed us like more about other parts of the police department. So the picture on the top left shows Milo, which is a firearms training simulator designed to create situations where a police officer must decide whether to use force and to what extent. MPD's use of force policy states that officers are only supposed to pull their firearms when there's risk of serious bodily injury to themselves or others. And if they do choose to use force, it has to be proportional to the force that the other individual is giving off. The picture on the top right was when they took all of the interns on like a police boat ride along, which was really fun. The Harbor Patrol is a part of the Special Operations Division and is responsible for policing the Potomac and the Anacostia rivers surrounding DC. And a lot of their work involves like safety inspections, traffic stops, and body recoveries, which is not very fun. During their investigations, the unit that I worked with collects evidence and submits it to the U.S. Attorney's Office for indictments, and evidence can be obtained through controlled operations or through the execution of search warrants. The types of evidence that the VRU typically deals with are firearms and drugs, and we usually would see a lot of like PCP and fentanyl in the specific areas that we were working in. I'm really grateful that this internship gave me so many opportunities to gain experiences out in the field and observe real-world policing. As a part of the Anti-Violence Policy Initiative, the MPD also created a unit called the Violent Crime Impact Team, and this team's primary objective is to recover illegal firearms off the streets of DC. So the picture on like the bottom left shows the path an armed gunman took during a live police pursuit that I was in the car for on a ride along, which was like very nerve-wracking at the time, but it was actually like really cool to get like the hands-on like life experience of like literally chasing someone with a gun in the streets. I even had to write up like a formal report as a witness. So you might see me in court testifying about this in a couple of years, but we'll see what happens. But this internship taught me a lot about the process of conducting long-term criminal investigation and the role that public policy plays in the criminal justice system. Getting to the point of indicting and prosecuting violent individuals involves the contribution of many different individuals working simultaneously, like analysts, forensic scientists, attorneys, they're all involved in the process. So over the summer, I learned a lot about the importance of like communication, organization, and teamwork. Working alongside the FBI and other units within the MPD specifically helped with like the efficiency of these investigations, because the MPD is there's like a lot of vacancies. So people are wearing lots of hats, doing multiple jobs, and they're basically just like really understaffed. But this is really important to like use our federal partners, and it helps a lot in conducting the investigations. Also, it's important because police, like, they working in a team, if you don't do that, it could be really dangerous and people's lives would be at risk. So I just think that it was really cool to see that in real life. But I just want to say thanks to the MPD and all the members of the VRU who helped and taught me so much over the summer and made my internship experience very valuable and unforgettable, because I almost got shot at. But that's it.
Thanks so much, Katie. It sounds like you had a lot of field experience and a lot of different experiences in this internship. Can you talk a little bit about managing any type of anxiety and fear that you had in these different experiences, especially ones that in the field you're talking about potentially being a witness?
Yeah, so I was like, it wasn't like I was like scared of the situation. I like to think I'm very like calm in stressful situations usually, but my adrenaline was pumping. Like I was like, I actually could be told to like duck and like have to like cover. Like I was wearing a vest, but it was stressful. I think that like a lot of them just like the police in general, like they're just so used to it that it just doesn't really faze them. So when they have like a civilian intern with them, they're like, oh wait, is she okay? Are you good? And I was like, yeah, I'm good.
And Aiden Bobo is asking, how often are bodies found by the Harbor Patrol?
Oh, they did tell us, I think it's like something they do every day, which is like really sad, but you know, it's like the Potomac is like disgusting and like murky. So they have like special trained scuba diving police officers that do that. Yeah.
Okay. Dr. Richardson is asking, what long-term non-confrontational strategies does the unit use to reduce violence?
long-term, non-confrontational.
Mhm.
They do a lot of so basically the unit that the reason they do long-term investigations is because they'll indict a lot of individuals and then get them all at once. There's my unit specifically does a lot of like behind the scenes work, and they're not like we do go out on the streets, but we don't actually like they don't interact with the people that they're targeting because like it would blow their cover. But so I had come into the MPD at like a weird time for my unit because they had just closed a case and we're starting a new case. So I got to see kind of like the ending and the beginning of one, which was really cool. But they just like work behind the scenes mostly. And the investigations are usually like a year long.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Katie.
Thank you.
And speaking of Aiden, up next, we have Aiden Critchlow, who spent the summer in Upper St. Clair Township near Pittsburgh. So we'll ask Aiden to unmute. Make sure you're unmuted. All right, and take it away, Aiden.
All right. Well, thank you very much for that. I'd like to give a shout out to everyone that's gone so far. And I told everyone as well that it would be tough to follow Katie because that sounded like just an incredible experience. But yeah, I did work at Upper St. Clair's Township in the South Hills of Pittsburgh, and it's a pretty wealthy area, and so they're very well funded in their different departments, and they do things very well there. As soon as you walk into the township, they have all of the awards just, sort of laid up on the wall, responsible accounting awards, and various other awards for just how well they've done over the years. And what I was asked to do is really three different things. I spent some time with community development, and that really involved kind of a lot of building permits, stuff like that. I actually did some code enforcement, which is really interesting because that's basically where you go out and you enforce the township code. And that can be for a variety of things, whether that's abandoned buildings, illegal signs in people's yards, or just illegal signs anywhere. And even like high grass, people not cutting their grass. So doing that was pretty interesting, having to knock on some doors and ask people like, hey, are you going to be cutting your grass anytime soon? Yeah, no pressure, but let's get that done. Just trying to nudge them, but not being rude in any way, and just letting them know that they kind of got to take care of it. One thing that I really thought was cool about this township is, and I didn't really know this until I started working in local government, but you can really have your own rules for signs, even like political signs. For instance, you're not allowed to have any political signs in your yard until 3 weeks until the election, and then I think only a week after the election as well. And then all of the signs are ripped out of yards and sort of put away for until the next election season. And the reason I thought I liked that was because it really reminds everyone when election time is, because I think a lot of people tend to forget and they get caught up in the 24-hour news cycle. And so that's something that helped the people to just remember when to vote and when to go out. Another thing I did was I spent a lot of time with the Public Works Department. My only real experience with Public Works before working with the township was just sort of knowing about Public Works programs through the New Deal and that sort of legislation a very, very long time ago, which was kind of funny because now I realized that every sort of township has their Public Works department, and Public Works does everything. They whether it's septic tanks or just cutting grass that's growing on the side of the road, things hanging over the road, something falls on the road, fixing the roads, really anything that you need fixed just around the township is that's them. And believe it or not, this is actually pretty sad, but there were a few residents over the years that have died from trees falling on them. So the township actually has an arbor, or I don't know. The guy is a tree specialist, but I do not want to mispronounce his title egregiously. So, but he is a tree expert, and he goes around and just makes sure, when trees are dying, they need to cut them down just to make sure that people aren't getting injured like they have in the past. And I'd love to give a shout out to George Kostelich, who is the director of the Public Works Department. That was my favorite part of the internship by far. I did a road survey with them. You can see that picture on the screen. I'm really just hunched over in that car. And what I was doing was sort of taking video of all of the roads in the township at like about 15 miles per hour and determining, what roads needed repair now, what roads were fine, what roads might need repaired soon, and sort of just like sort of looking at deterioration of different township roads over time. And then kind of the final thing I did, and the main thing was I worked on the police union negotiations and sort of contract that they had coming up. Now, this was so cool for me because anyone that knows me knows I'm a huge labor policy nerd. I love talking about what we do at work, contracts and all that fun stuff that most other people don't find very fun, but I love it. So just being able to sit in on these police union negotiations, seeing how administration and the workers go back and forth, and just really being a part of that and understanding how those generally work and go along. It wasn't nearly as contentious as I thought it might be. And maybe that's because, the township is very well funded and there's generally a pretty low crime rate. So I don't think there's too much contention, but yeah, it was just very cool to see, each side having their demands and then sort of having that back and forth and just being a part of that. And for that, I calculated a lot of statistics, graphs and figures. If you can see on the screen on the right side, that's one of the figures that I made just about patrol officer compensation, and that's for our township and then a bunch of other townships that were surrounding the area. I believe one of the townships is actually Sydney Harris's township, which is a shout out to Sydney as well and all the other members of public policy. School of Public Policy. But yeah, I got so much experience from this internship, and it was so fun to sort of just be a part of local government, helping people and on a very just on a very personal basis. Something happens right outside their house and that's township property, you got to be there to take care of it and almost console them in a sense, because it's a very real problem for them, and it's cool to be able to be a part of that sort of problem solving effort. I really enjoyed it, and I would definitely consider a future in local government. And it really excited me to work in other areas of government, maybe state and federal as well.
I love your enthusiasm, Aiden. Can you tell us a little bit what might have been the most difficult thing that you tackled during this internship?
So I think the most difficult thing was regarding the road survey. I don't really know a lot about construction or road repair in general. So sort of sitting down with the public works people and understanding, this is a bad pothole. This is something that needs repaired immediately. This is something that you could probably patch over in a couple weeks and it would last you for a long time. Or this road needs an entire repair. It was very interesting. And I'll tell you, now when I drive on roads or just look at roads, I do a double check, and I'm seeing, is the township on top of this? Are people on top of it? And just making sure that everything's looking good.
And Dr. Richardson is asking, did you face issues that were the responsibility of another level of government, and how did you handle it?
Well, one thing that I wasn't as involved in, but I was involved in it in that I was learning about it, but I wasn't sort of making decisions at this level, was like grants and stuff like that. And the finance department at this local government is so on top of their stuff. They're, applying for 1 million different grants to try and get as much money in the door as humanly possible. And that's one thing where you really have to coordinate with another level of government. And also with certain roads, like certain roads are county roads, state roads. And so you kind of, for some of the roads that I was surveying, some of those are actually not the responsibility of the township, which was interesting to me, even though they run right through the township. And it's in that whole process of sort of who has authority on the road that interested me in many ways.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Aiden. And sounds like you might be going into local government someday.
Hey, who knows? I was enthusiastic about it, and one thing I always tried to exude at the township was A&E, and that's attitude and effort. You bring your attitude and effort every single day. You're going to learn and you're going to get better. And I just hope that I hope they speak as fondly of me as I do of them.
Great. Well, thank you so much. All right. Up next, we're going to hear from Alyssa Farley, who is going to talk about her experience with the State of New Jersey's Office of Diversity and Inclusion. So if we go ahead and unmute Alyssa, we will show your poster. All right, take it away.
Hello, everyone. My name is Alyssa Farley, and this summer I have the opportunity to intern for the Governor of New Jersey, Phil Murphy's Wealth and Disparities Task Force in Trenton, New Jersey. In 2021, Governor Murphy and his administration formed the Wealth Disparities Task Force to combat wealth gaps based on race and ethnicity within New Jersey. Over the years, New Jersey has become an inexpensive state to live in, with the rise in cost of living, such as property tax, rent, and more. Historically, communities of color have always faced large wealth inequalities, but with health and economic issues such as COVID-19 and the recession, it has been a huge factor in increasing those gaps. The task force was established to examine the causes of and remedies for the longstanding wealth disparities that affect Black and Hispanic New Jerseyans through Executive Order 262. To ensure the success of the task force, the Office of Equity is the liaison to the Wealth Disparities Task Force. The office provides actionable solutions to areas such as housing, health, education, criminal justice, and the economy, which impacts the progress of wealth within Black and Hispanic communities in New Jersey. I worked under Director Janae Johnson as a policy analyst intern, completing assigned research memos, provided policy recommendations, and attending policy meetings. I was assigned to the Housing Working Group and the Criminal Justice Working Group. Within both working groups, I was given several responsibilities to aid the task force in identifying the nation's best practice in combating specific issues that contributes to wealth disparities so that they can develop and establish potential solutions for New Jersey. Some of my responsibilities included researching and drafting memos on New Jersey's sentencing subcommittee and what they have done within the past 5 years, research and identify the nation's best practice for housing policy and shared equity programs, research and drafted memos on best practices across the nation to combat eviction crisis. I also researched and draft memos on best practices adopted in Houston, Texas, to reduce the number of unhoused or homeless individuals in the city. I also research and draft memos on the New Jersey Department of Corrections and how they determine the number of people who will be unhoused upon leaving prison. And among those things, I also helped create an extensive Excel file that outlines state programs, organizations, and agencies that work to solve these specific issues. In addition, I also compiled an extensive Excel sheet that outlines funding, specific funding resources that were used, as well as statistical outcomes of how many people were helped through those programs. Based on my research, I also had the opportunity to provide my own recommendations. And with those recommendations during meetings, I would talk about the strengths and weaknesses for the recommendations and the outcomes that I assume it will have. Outside of my responsibilities, I was also granted many experiences during this internship. First, I engaged with Governor Murphy's policy team for education and economy and networked with the rest of the department. I also attended a youth forum for education and progress, and I also attended housing and criminal justice working group policy meetings. In addition, I shadowed a staff member for a day and attended Office of Equity and Wealth Disparities Task Force webinars. In this meeting, I was given the opportunity to interact with task force co-chairs such as the Lieutenant Governor Sheila Oliver, Rutgers University President Jonathan Holloway, the President of the Council of New Jersey Grantmakers, Maria Vasconado, and the State Banking and Insurance Commissioner, Marlene Carday. A final reflection: in this internship, I was able to witness my Clifton Strength assessments, such as responsibility, futuristic, and analytical develop. With each task, I develop a new understanding of my abilities and how it contributes to my strength or weakness as a policy intern and a policy student. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alyssa. It sounds like you had a great experience. What was the most surprising part of your time with the DEI office?
I've never met Governor Murphy in person, so it was really exciting to just be in the office and see him walk back and forth. I'm like, oh my God, I'm literally in here with So I think that would be like one of the best moments of my internship. So yeah.
And was there something specific, like a specific skill that you're going to take away from your preceptor?
Yes. So this internship was heavily research based, and it really allowed me to hone my research skills and ability to get information quickly, because the turnaround time for these memos were either 4 or 5 days, or 4 or 5 days. So I had to learn how to use keywords to get the information that I want to get, so that I write the memo in a timely manner and present it to them with all the information, the statistical background, and how much people or resources that are being used for those specific programs that can help the team create their own policies for New Jersey.
Now, you referenced the strengths assessment. How do you plan to use those insights going forward?
I realized that I'm really analytical when I do research. I don't know how, but that was one of my strengths that really peeked through, that my supervisor noticed, that I was able to, out of all the informations that I find, I was able to get like the exact information that they wanted, and I was able to analyze it in the short and good manner, so that the rest of the team can understand and use my memo as a representation or as a starting point for the meetings. So I think with my Clifton Strength Assessment, I have developed wildly, and I also have realized some of my weaknesses in those areas that I do feel that I could improve on. So yeah.
Great. Thank you so much, Alyssa. We look forward to seeing what you're going to do next. All right, up next, we have Xin Zhang, who interned with the Pennsylvania Population Network. All right.
Hi. Hi, everyone. I'm Chen. And in the summer, I have an internship in Pennsylvania, and that population I work with Dr. Riven Chandler. And Pennsylvania Population Network, actually speaking, is a visible program of demographic and health research, application, and outreach focusing on population characters and change in Pennsylvania and United States. So I spent here for almost 3 months, and the main job for me is that conduct research various topics regarding health and well-being education. It's concentrated about elder care, election, and demographic shifts in Pennsylvania and surrounding area. Especially, I work with ACS data. The most exciting thing that for me is that I use the knowledge for the first year in our program and doing policy research. Doing policy research that concentrate on the social problem in Pennsylvania. So at the beginning, we worked on a project that about elder care in Pennsylvania at the county level, and then after finish this, we do some research about the family poverty in the Pennsylvania, and this is the most exciting thing that I have done for this summer internship. Based on ACS data, I did a lot of work on the poverty change, as well as the family poverty in rural and urban area in Pennsylvania counties. The key findings are mainly about the poverty rate change of family decline between the 2010s as well as 2020 from 8.5% to 8.1%, and the minority groups like Black and Hispanic families are more than twice as likely to live in below the poverty line as a white family. Another finding is that the poverty rate for single mother family with related children under 18 years old in 2020 had a pretty high percentage, that which is 64%. So usually one finding of my research is about that single mother problem is sometimes regarded as an urban problem, but in Pennsylvania, like counties like Cameron County and other rural area counties, it's also a serious problem. So another interesting finding is that I can use the knowledge that I got in this program, especially for are to do pretty excellent research that just like drawing map and have do some research shows based on statistic packages like R of ggplot2 or other things that I can show what kind of things happen in Pennsylvania. And another thing different from my former internship in China is that I can work as a researcher instead of in just like some pretty different experience like you working a government as a government internship that. So I'm pretty interested, I'm pretty enjoy this summer with Ravens that can do such excellent policy recommendations, and we cooperate other department of our university like the Penn State Data Science, and we have regular meeting every week to talk about what kind of topics that we can work together. It's a pretty exciting experience, and I can get the knowledge and abilities that I learned from the program and make me a research. So generally speaking, after finish this, I have make decisions that for when I graduate, I will try to find a job in the local think tank or something that do the further research that I finished now.
Thank you so much. And you did a lot of writing in this internship, didn't you?
I write for almost 3 policy briefs about this topic about elder care, family property, and voting change. Maybe it will publish in our website later this year. So it should be pretty interesting topic that about the family, especially for the family property change, as well as for the risk groups and other things.
Right. Yeah, I'm excited to read that. So what do you think might be the key or the most important skill that you're going to take away from this experience?
For the most exciting experience, I guess is how to use your knowledge from statistical knowledge and policy knowledge to the people without such just to show your idea to the public is the most important things, because any policy need assist from here, and you should avoid use jargon or something like things to show them, and how to use the statistics package to show things clearly for your opinions and to show the problem that will happen in the states that we live in.
Great. And Dr. Richardson is asking, who's the audience for the studies that produced by the Population Network? And how did the leadership help you think about the audience in your policy briefs?
Yeah, actually we have some process to find the audience for this program. Usually it is the state representatives as well as the local policymakers, just like the government of the counties have pretty high property rate. And we also want to put our policy brief on some social media like Twitter as well as Facebook, just like this. So it will pretty help for the public know what happened for the Pennsylvania. And also we want to make the local legislators know what happened in the place that they are served.
Great. Thank you so much. Sounds like a great experience, and we look forward to reading that upcoming brief. All right, up next, we have Samantha Doherty, who worked with the campaign for U.S. Representative Chrissy Houlihan. Welcome, Samantha.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Sam, and this summer I interned with Representative Chrissy Houlihan's campaign for U.S. Congress. And Chrissy's the incumbent candidate, so she's currently the representative for Pennsylvania's 6th Congressional District, which also happened to be my home district. So I'll start with a little bit of background about her. She's a military veteran, and she graduated from the Michigan Institute of Technology. And then she went on to be a teacher and worked for the American Corps and worked mainly in North Philadelphia. And then she's also an entrepreneur and created a basketball apparel and footwear brand prior to running for office. And then she's the mother of 2 daughters, and most importantly to me, the first woman ever to be elected to Pennsylvania's 6th Congressional District, as well as being the first Democrat in 160 years. So since she's the first Democrat in 160 years, the county, which is Chester County, is a tough area to win because it swings most elections. And so this is why I felt pretty passionate about getting involved with her campaign and doing my part in that way. And I'm also inspired to elect more women into office. So working for Chrissy's campaign was a great way to combine those two things and get involved in that capacity. And then what I really wanted to get out of the summer was the behind the scenes of campaign work and just exploring the different roles of campaign management. Most of my undergrad experience, I was a political science major, focused on like federal politics, and I was interested in learning about politics and campaigning at a local level. So as you can see, I've divided my poster into two sections, which is field and finance. And I learned throughout the summer that the two aspects of really any political campaign are the field and the finance work. So the field work is getting out into the quote unquote field and trying to secure as many votes as possible. And then finance is the other side of that, where we work to bring in as much money as possible for the campaign. And the goal of finance is that at the end of the campaign, you pretty much want to go bankrupt. You want to spend all the money that you make. So all my work this summer was divided between those two categories, and they were both pretty helpful in just furthering my understanding of the behind the scenes of a campaign. And so the makeup of a campaign office is pretty different than a traditional work setting. The employees work for about a year, give or take, and it's just entirely about getting their candidate elected. So this makes the job not 9 to 5 or Monday through Friday, but really just as long as their days can possibly be, and working most weekends. And I learned that the campaign staff really devotes their lives temporarily to a campaign, and they're all really passionate about doing it. And so my responsibilities changed from day to day, but for the most part, I worked with finance in the morning and then field in the afternoons. And finance, I would prospect potential donors online, researching them and their donation history to see if they would donate to Chrissy Houlihan. And then I would call those donors and ask for donations. And then my favorite part of the finance work was campaign fundraising events. I liked calling people to invite them to events, and I went to one over the summer, which was really exciting. And then the field work I did was being assigned to different areas of the district each afternoon, and we canvassed there. So canvassing is knocking on people's doors and asking them to vote for Chrissy, just every door in a neighborhood. And I thought that this was going to be like pretty scary initially. And it could be if someone was unfriendly, but for the most part, I felt like I was really making a difference. And that was the most important way to connect with voters. And it was fun to talk to prospective voters about their political opinions, especially if they were unsure about where they stood on certain issues. And then from a policy perspective, my work on the campaign focused mainly around sharing policy more so than creating it. So just being knowledgeable about legislation that Chrissy has created or supported in Congress was important in swaying people always to vote for her. So just overall, I had a really great summer working for the campaign, and I'm really grateful for the opportunity to learn something that I've really been so curious about. So it was important for me to just explore some realm of politics, and I'm glad that I was able to, and I'm glad that I was able to do it with a candidate that I liked a lot. So.
Thanks, Sam. How do you share a candidate's platform to those who may not see things the same way, or might be, might not be a Democrat, for instance? Maybe you're knocking on the wrong door.
Yeah, so they actually have a database. So you're not, since Chrissy is a Democrat, you're not knocking on doors of voters that have a track record of voting 100% Republican. It's more so people that might sway from election to election that you could potentially get to vote for her. But also, it's also about marketing Chrissy as more of just a candidate than just a Democrat. So on all of their yard signs and flyers we would hand out, it wouldn't say Democrat anywhere, because they would want people to just think about Chrissy as a potential politician for them, not as a Democrat or a Republican. which I thought was interesting.
Were there any uncomfortable moments or that you had during the experience, and how did you overcome any of those?
Yeah, I think knocking on people's doors, sometimes like people just don't want you at their front door or on their property. So I think sometimes people just try and shoo you away, which sometimes is a little bit rude, but I understand. But that was pretty much the most common obstacle that we faced over the summer.
Thank you so much, Sam.
Thank you.
All right, up next we have Kenny Gatton, who worked with the Pennsylvania Office of International Business Development. And Kenny, I'll ask you to unmute real quick. Take it away.
Okay. Hi, I'm Kenny. This summer I interned for the Office of International Business Development, or OIBD, at the Pennsylvania Department of Community and Economic Development, or DCED. The DCED is a cabinet-level agency that attracts foreign direct investment, also referred to as FDI, and provides export assistance to PA companies. To attract FDI, the OIBD employs 13 investment representatives who serve as liaisons between governments and companies in 44 countries. The office also promotes PA at international trade events, runs advertisements abroad, and sends diplomatic missions to meet with foreign industry leaders and economic development officials. For interested investors, the OIBD helps set up a business entity, identifies business sites, provides market research, makes introductions to development partners and elected officials, and offers financial assistance. To provide export assistance for PA companies, the OIBD collaborates with 10 economic development agencies across the state. Each office provides counseling and technical assistance to help PA companies develop and execute international marketing and sales objectives. The OIBD also engages in subnational diplomacy. The secretary, for example, is often invited to speak as a representative of PA at diplomatic ceremonies. The office also signs collaboration agreements with foreign governments to expand trade in key industries. My responsibilities this summer included conducting market research, drafting speeches for diplomatic ceremonies and trade events, composing briefs for investor meetings, writing articles on FDI successes and opportunities, and doing site visits with foreign investors, government representatives, and industry leaders. Going into the internship, I had 3 objectives. The first was to explore how the OIBD attracts FDI and helps foreign-owned firms learn the costs and benefits of doing business in PA. At one point, I toured a Chinese-owned vinyl floor tile manufacturing facility in Wilkes-Barre, where the company owners celebrated the low-interest loans and workforce development programs the OIBD had made available to them. For a trade event hosted by the Department of Commerce in DC, I compiled lists of 400 tech companies from 30 countries, researched each one to learn its compatibility with PA industries, and then sent the list along with recommendations for priority meetings to each of our investment reps. I also helped promote FDI successes and opportunities in PA and articles I wrote for the DCED blog and a business publication in England. My second objective was to become more familiar with trends in PA's industries of the future. In Pittsburgh, our office co-hosted a tour of Carnegie Mellon University's Robotics and Manufacturing Future Institute for Japanese government and industry representatives. We learned how Pittsburgh has created an ecosystem of high-tech, high-growth industries in robotics, data sciences and AI, computer engineering, advanced manufacturing, and medical device development. I also learned about this while conducting market research when companies reached out to us for information on things like available customers, skilled workers, and real estate costs. My third objective was to observe the interplay of international trade and geopolitics. On one occasion, I wrote a speech for my boss to deliver at the Flower Day celebration of Chinese Americans in Philadelphia, where the Chinese Consul General gave an impassioned address that not so subtly stressed the bipolarity of the global order. I also helped host the Ukrainian consulate in Philadelphia at meetings with PA agency directors and legislators to discuss grant allocations, refugee resettlement efforts, and logistical support for foreign aid delivery. Finally, in July, I attended the Japanese fashion design competition that my boss persuaded the company to host at the Penn Wharton School rather than in New York City. It was attended by officials including the mayor of Philadelphia, the Japanese consul in New York, and a Penn professor of East Asian studies. And my internship provided 4 insights. The first was the power a state-level office has to affect change. When the OIBD successfully reached companies and demonstrated their options for expansion, PA usually made the short list for foreign investment, and foreign markets were usually quickly exploited by exporters. All it took from our team was a friendly face, ready communication, and a flexible willingness to do research. Another example is the power I had as a bureaucrat to cultivate certain industries over others through targeted attraction efforts. The second was that I learned how to tap into my strengths. Speech writing appealed to my passions for advocacy work, research, and rhetorical analysis. I also found that my favorite part of the job was identifying and targeting investors because there is an infinite variety of companies, products, and services to learn about, many of which achieve public goods. And the third is that geography and politics are inseparable from economic development. Every investor I spoke to said they chose Pennsylvania because it's strategically located in the Northeast near several customer markets. The appearance of elected officials and diplomats at the fashion competition also speak to how diplomacy and commerce are often intertwined. And comments by Japanese government representatives at my visit to Carnegie Mellon made it clear that robotics and AI are being developed not only to achieve economic growth, but to advance national security. So we learned at the School of Public Policy that the future is a policy choice, and this summer I found reasons to be optimistic.
Thanks, Kenny. What surprised you about the attraction of Pennsylvania for foreign investments?
Yeah, Pennsylvania has the most diverse economy in the United States. We have plastics, natural gas, medical device development, AI, robotics, all these different things around the state. And we're strategically located between markets of Boston, New York, Washington, D.C., and other states and other big cities and metro areas. And so I found it particularly interesting that Pennsylvania has such a diverse economy because when you think about interesting economies in the United States, you think of Silicon Valley, you think of Wall Street, you think of DC, you don't think about Pennsylvania, but Pennsylvania is right there.
Any insight from the skills that you're going to take away from this experience moving forward?
Yeah, I think being able to conduct research on trade flows and how they affect not only business engagements and international trade, but international geopolitics in terms of the power dynamics involved and government's willingness to allow certain trade to take place based on those larger political interests is something that I learned about. It's very subtle and you kind of have to pick up on it.
Great. Well, thank you so much. It sounds like a good experience.
Thank you.
All right. Up next, we'll hear from Pete Kurtz-Glovis, who interned with the Global Project Against Hate and Extremism. Pete was not able to be here today, so he pre-recorded his presentation. Let's take a look.
Hi, everybody. My name is Pete Kurtz-Glovis. I am a second-year master's student in the School of Public Policy, and today I'm going to talk about my experience as a research intern for the Global Project Against Hate and Extremism. I worked in this position during the summer of 2021, and the organization was founded by Heidi Burek and Wendy Villa in 2020, both of whom are alumni of the Southern Poverty Law Center. They wanted to create an organization that focused on transnational hate, not just hate groups within the United States. So there's a lot of looking at different extremist groups that kind of begin in the US and then cross borders into Eastern Europe, as well as other countries around the world. They do research as well as political advocacy in order to advance different policy solutions to end far-right extremism. This includes working directly with administrations as well as doing sort of more locally based advocacy type work. My role with the group was to work on 3 different projects. The first was combating the global spread of racist conspiracy theories, such as the Great Replacement theory. The second was documenting domestic voter suppression efforts in the United States. And the third was investigating far-right extremists and the symbols that they use both domestically and around the world. In terms of combating racist conspiracy theories in the US, I was tasked with in the US and globally, my main role was identifying politicians in Eastern Europe who were pushing the Great Replacement theory. This was just after the Buffalo shooting in May of last year. And the Buffalo shooter did cite Great Replacement as one of the main motivating factors for why he engaged in that violence. For those unaware, the Great Replacement theory says something to the tune of whites are being replaced by immigrants or other ethnic minorities, and because of that, white people need to make that not happen. Anyway, so through the course of this research, I found that there were a number of politicians within Eastern Europe that were kind of pushing it. I studied Hungary, Finland, Austria, Poland, Germany, and the Netherlands. and contributed to about 20% of the total findings among the research team that was working on that project. With documenting domestic voter suppression efforts, there was a focus on domestic politics and figuring out which politicians were advancing voter suppression legislation and what groups might have been planning some type of voter suppression or interference with the election coming up in November of this year. In total, I was able to identify about 44 politicians between the 3 states that I was tasked with researching, which was Texas, Minnesota, and Wisconsin, who had supported various voter suppression bills, which is any bill that was making it more difficult for people to actually vote. In addition to that, I identified 16 far-right groups that were sometimes linked directly to the Republican Party, and these groups were planning some type of interference with the 2022 election, including stopping perceived Antifa or BLM activists from stealing the election, as well as broadly spreading conspiracy theory that the election was probably going to be stolen and should be seen as illegitimate. And finally, I was investigating far-right extremists and symbols, both in the US and abroad. I had to create different social media accounts using a pseudonym and fake pictures and all that kind of stuff. I also was in a number of different far-right chat rooms, just observing what people were saying, what people were planning, and figuring out the difference between their violent spaces. So figuring out the difference between general kind of like tough guy talk and actual credible threats of violence, and sussing all of that out. In addition to occupying these spaces, I learned a lot about the taxonomy between different far-right groups, such as the difference between groups like the Proud Boys and Patriot Front, who may seem like allies, but are actually diametrically opposed to each other on a political level, which was just very interesting for me. In addition to this, I contributed to a large database of far-right symbols that covered almost anything you can think of. I think we're up to about 60 total images in the database right now, and I'm trying to work. I have about 40 hours left to work on that project. In conclusion, the internship was really beneficial for me as a mid-career student who's also in the process of changing fields from social services management to extremism research. I needed a way to get a variety of entry-level experience quickly, and I think GPA really enabled me to do that, both by working remotely and by being there whenever I had questions. So I'm super grateful for that. And I did want to answer just a few of the general questions that I tend to get when I'm out at parties or at networking events and things like that. One of the big questions I get in this kind of work is, what about left-wing extremists? There are people that study left-wing extremists. I'm actually in a class right now that is pretty focused on that. However, I rarely get asked this question in good faith. Usually when people ask the question, they're referring to what they perceive as left-wing extremism, which is Antifa or BLM, neither of which meet the criteria to be defined as terrorists or extremists. The Trump administration tried for 4 years and could not find ample evidence to get them defined as such. But there are left-wing extremist groups. There is the Red Army faction in West Germany was a notorious one. There was the various Red Brigades in Italy during the years of lead there. There is in the United States, you had the Weather Underground, and contemporarily you have a group like Jane's Revenge, which I don't think is currently defined as an extremist group, but probably will be, as well as other groups like the Earth Liberation Front, Animal Liberation Front. So those groups do exist, but again, I very rarely get asked that question in good faith, and it's usually just a knee-jerk reaction to things that happened in 2020, which have already been kind of run through the gamut of attempts to define as terrorism and failed. Other questions that I get asked are, how does this experience translate to a full-time job? Luckily, I was able to make a lot of new connections while I was working over the summer. I was also living in Washington, D.C., so I was able to get down to some conferences, some happy hours, and just start meeting people in the field. I'm looking at a number of different potential career paths, nothing set in stone yet, but talking to people at the George Washington University program on extremism, continuing my conversations with Heidi Bierich and Wendy Villa through the Global Project, and also looking at positions in tech companies, which are doing a lot of policy-based work around prevention of extremism. So I think I'm running up against time, but if anybody has questions about this, you can look me up on either in the group me or through our school's lists and shoot me an email or anything. I'm always happy to talk about it, but sorry I couldn't be there in person. Y'all take care.
And that was Pete talking about his internship with the Global Project Against Extremism and Hate. And he's actually going to be a part of a webinar next week. We'll send out more information about that as well. Thank you to all of our student presenters for some great discussions today about their experiences with their internships. And next, we'd like to welcome Clarence Lang, Dean of the College of the Liberal Arts, with a few words. Welcome, Dean Lang.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. I'll be brief. Just really enjoyed the opportunity to, on a Friday, hear the good work that people are doing. And let me just start by thanking you for the opportunity to congratulate you on the internships and all that they clearly have appeared to have yielded, which you've showcased here today. I'm really impressed with the various organizations that hosted internships from the School of Public Policy MPP program. And as I listened and based on some of the information that I had coming to visit today, they range from the local to the regional scale and national, and it seems even international. So I heard about the DC Metropolitan Police Department, the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation. Someone's working on an election campaign, the Office of the Attorney General of Pennsylvania, the New Jersey Office of Equity, specifically the Wealth Disparity Task Force, the Office of International Business Development, Department of Public Works in Upper St. Clair Township, the PA Population Network, and the Global Project Against Hate and Extremism. And among others, I'm sure I've missed a few. And I just want to say that the work that you all are doing, you make the School of Public Policy, College of the Liberal Arts, and more generally Penn State extremely proud. One of my top priorities as dean is to do in our college what we can through coursework, internships, other research-based enrichment experiences to prepare liberal arts students for multiple career pathways. And I see that many of the ones that you all are exploring and pursuing serve others, and I'm happy to see the enthusiasm of people who are working in the public sector, as well as the nonprofit sector as well. So I was enthused to learn that our MPP student interns, perhaps interns, you've heard this, but you all have been by the agencies that hosted you recognized for your ability to conduct policy research while displaying some really essential skills to be successful. And certainly in my role, I was happy to learn that the agencies involved in supporting our interns indicated that they would welcome future MPP interns. So I want to commend our students, you, for building a solid foundation, not only for yourselves professionally, but also for future students in the MPP program, which is really important for me. Let me close at least my comments by just sort of saying a few words about the School of Public Policy. And I want to give kudos to the director, Lillard, and the fine team, the fantastic team, in fact, around him. The SPP has done some really important collaborative work across the university, and that's resulted in, among other things, some co-funded faculty hires. And that's important because we're in a moment where there are not a whole lot of faculty hires being approved in our current fiscal environment. But the kind of collaborative work that the school has done is paying off in that way. As I hope all of you at this point know, the School of Public Policy is going to be one of the occupants of the new Susan Welch Liberal Arts Building, where we hope to create an interdisciplinary, cross-methodological community of teaching, learning, and research that I hope you all will have the opportunity to take advantage of. Maybe some of you won't, depending on where you are in your Penn State careers. But my point is that in saying that the value of your degree is only going to appreciate given the good work that's occurring. I'm happy to share that news. That's my prediction, and I feel very bullish and confident about that. So the last thing I'll say is that I look forward to the opportunity. I remember my first year in 2019, one of the events that I really enjoyed was spending time with the MPP students in person. We had I remember the pizza and some soda. And so I hope to have the opportunity to spend time with you as is safe and as is appropriate in person. Hopefully Lillard with some more pizza and soda. But in the meantime, thank you all for the work that you all are doing, and congratulations on what clearly has been a successful run of internships that you all experienced. So, Lillard, where are you?
I was staying off screen so that they could hear
All right.
you. But absolutely,
Okay.
we'll make the pizza and soda.
All right.
We'll make that happen.
All right. Very good. So I suppose that with that, I'll leave you to your devices. Thank you for the opportunity to spend some time with you all, and best wishes. I hope that your semester is off to a good start. Clearly, you all are coming in with a lot of momentum from the summer. So I congratulate you again on that. So
Thanks, Clarence.
Thank you, Dean Lang. And
all right.
Up next, we have Tima Moldogaziev. He's our Director of Graduate Studies, and he is here to give us our concluding remarks.
Thank you all, especially thanks to Dean Lang for supporting our internship programs and everything that we are trying to do in the School of Public Policy. Wow, I mean, what a diversity of experiences that the students shared with us today. 300 hours, a minimum of 300 hours is a lot of work. So congratulations on finishing that successfully. Special thanks to the organizations and individuals that worked with you and made your internships a rich experience. Certainly it sounds that you all had a lot of applications of what you learned in the classrooms. And internships are an integral part, in addition to your capstone, as part of this professional school's curriculum. So a successful internship program will be something that differentiates our school from others. So in this respect, I'd like to thank and congratulate Dr. Baumgartner for setting this bar high. I truly believe that other internship programs around campus could learn from what you're doing here. So congratulations. And as always, congratulations and thank you to Whitney for setting up this in a virtual environment. So I know you do a lot of programs and projects like these in the school and elsewhere. So without sort of pulling and pushing this any further, congratulations to all for finishing up and wrapping up this cycle, and looking forward to another one next summer, Dr. Baumgartner. Thank you all.
Thank you. And thank you to all of our student presenters today, and for the class of 2023, our MPP students. And thank you so much to all of our preceptors and to everyone who attended today. Thanks, everybody, and have a great weekend. Thank you.